Hi, this is Rob from Wonder Vision, and welcome to Lesson 7 on how to produce a disco funk record. In the previous lesson we did some reverb buses and some ping pong delay buses and things like that. We're now ready to do the mixdown process. So what we're going to do, first of all, is we're going to find a section of the track where everything is in there. So we're going to look at this section here, which is this bit. Okay, so it's the main body of the track. But what we're going to do is we're going to loop that section there, and we're going to solo the kick. Now, with this being an original disco kick, there's a little bit of grit in there, if you like. So if you can hear, there's a little bit of a little bit of roughness in there, which is good because we're trying to create an authentic sort of disco record, if you like, but using modern technology. So first thing we're going to do is we'll select the kick and get your EQ up down here. Now before I start doing the mix down, I just want to make it clear that when it comes to mixing down tracks, if you're not too familiar with it, there are 1,000,001 ways of doing a mix down. Everybody has their own version of doing it. I have my own version of doing it, and you too will have your own version of doing it. It's all about, at the end of the day, trusting your ears more than anything. And getting something that sounds quite right. As long as your tracks don't clip and distort and sound really ridiculous, then you shouldn't have any problems in learning this process. I myself, I've never had any formal training when it comes to mix downs. I've just picked up little bits from here and there and put them into my own work. So always trust your ears, but also try and follow a little bit of the theory as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on this kick first, then into the snare, then the hi-hats, then the congos and all the other drum sounds, and then the bass and the Rhodes and so forth. Just like when we arrange a track and we build it from scratch, we do the same sort of thing with the mix down. Okay, so let's get the kick up, and the EQ, I've taken a little bit of the bottom end out here just so that it doesn't distort. Okay, so if I take it out fully, we want it to retain its punchiness, but we don't want too much top end on it. So what we're going to do is we'll go over to our audio effects, compressor, and choose a generic compressor, which is there. Okay, and just really gives it a bit more of a bump to it. And then we take a bit of the bottom end out on the EQ. Not too much, just try and round it off at the end. I mean, it all depends on what sort of speakers you've got as well. So you're going to have different sounds to what I've got, because I am doing this tutorial through headphones. So I mean, I've got a decent pair of Sennheiser headphones, but still, it doesn't compare to a decent set of speakers. So always trust your ears, as I've already said. Okay. And try that and see how that goes with you. Okay, what we're going to do next is we're going to add the snare in. And the snare, I've already put a compressor in here, and I just need to put an EQ in, because the snare is quite snappy. And what we want the snare is to have quite a little bit more of a thud than a real high snap. So just play with your EQ a bit in the middle. There, see that? Just takes away that resonant sort of snappy sound. And then the closed hats. Put an EQ on that. Click the low pass. And let's solo that. You don't want it too high. And what we need to do is we need to get the session view up and just take it down slightly, because it's quite piercing. an EQ on the open hats. Give that a bit of top end. Take it off slightly at the bottom. You could even put a little bit of reverb on that just by sending it. So that sounds quite nice actually. So we'll put the claps on next. And the claps could do with a little bit of reverb, I think. And some EQ. Somewhere around there. And then the congos. Make sure you save your track as well, because there's nothing worse than losing a piece of work if it crashes. What the congos need is quite bright, but also keep a little bit of its deepness as well, with them being a percussion sound. And then the bells. EQ8. I think what you could do is, it's worth trying, is panning the claps to the left slightly and panning the congos to the right slightly. See how that goes. Let's just solo those. See, that works quite nice. So the bells, as I say, a bit of a top end on them because they're trebly. And the next thing we're going to do is the crash. Maybe a bit more volume on that crash. The crash doesn't really need a great deal doing to it. You could put some EQ on it, again a little bit of top end. But it doesn't necessarily need a great deal to it, because it's carrying a lot from the reverb anyway. Okay, so they're those then. Let's see what we've got with those. Sounds okay. Right, okay, next we're going to do the tambourine. And again, this is a trebly sort of instrument. So let's put some EQ on it and put the kick and the snare on. And then the hats. That's also a personal preference, as I say, with what you want your track to sound like. I personally like a lot of top end and a lot of bottom end to be combined. So You know, I'm trying to take the natural elements of the instrument and trying to enhance those. So with the trebly stuff, I try and put a bit more treble on, just to brighten them up in the mix, really. So with the tambourines, it's a similar sort of process as it is with the bells. So just a slight bit of top end, I would say, on the tambourine, if you can see the difference. Only slight. Okay, and the next thing we want to do is the drum fill, which doesn't really need a great deal to it. A lot of reverb on that, so let's just take that down slightly. And put a compressor on that, and just put your threshold down slightly. Let's see how that fits in with the mix. Okay, next up then what we're going to do is the Rhodes. So, and we'll do the wind chimes and the sweep effects a little bit later on. Okay, let's get the main body of the work sorted first. Right, the Rhodes. What we need to do is keep the warmth of this. So kind of take the top end down on this one slightly, and let's put the kick and the snare on. And make sure that your reverb is probably up a little bit, about 35% on the actual preset. Not too much. Just try and make sure that that there's not a certain sound. Like for example, I've just taken the claps down a bit there because they were overpowering everything else. So all the time, just trying to keep on top of sounds that don't dominate. Okay, that's probably one of the best tips you can do. Really, is just to trust your ears all the time. I know I keep saying it, but It really is a true factor. Right, next up then, we're going to do the bass line. And this has got the reverb already added to it on the preset in the VST, so you could put the reverb on and take the mix down. Now the bass obviously is quite an important part of the track, so let's put the kick and the snare on. Just want to raise the bottom of it really to about here and stick a compressor on there as well. Let's just check the compressor presets. Maybe try the 1976. Okay, right, okay, next we're going to do is the lead line. So let's solo the lead line. And stick an EQ8 on it. And what we're going to do is we're going to raise the top end on it and put it with the bass. Okay. And what we want to do is just raise the top end and perhaps pan it to the left slightly. And basically just leave it at that really. You could spend a little bit more time probably taking out if there's any frequencies that are a bit too piercing. But what we want to do is keep that quite trebly. You can hear the difference. Okay, right, and the next thing we're going to do is the Tal Uno synth. And once again, what we want to do is keep this quite trebly because it's quite a trebly sort of sound anyway. So we've panned that to the right there, look. So it's the opposite of the lead line. So if we put those two together. Okay, that sounds quite nice. And the wind chimes. They just need some treble on there, they do. Not too much, and the sweep is going to be quite a lot of bottom end in that sweep. So let's just put some drums on and we'll loop it here. It all depends on how gritty you want that sweep to sound. I mean, if we solo it, if you want too much top, if you want it to be quite piercing and quite slushy, then put more top end on it. But I'm going to take a lot of the top end out, so. Okay, and then over to the toms. I think with the toms, if we put some reverb on there, okay, we've come to the end of the mixdown. Now, obviously, this was a very short mixdown. It's only about 20 odd minutes or so. So usually, in normal studio times, when you're mixing down a track, it could take hours and hours, and it can also take days. One of the best pieces of advice you could do with a mixdown is you could spend a couple of hours on it, and then the best thing to do is to save it, shut it down, go away from it, and come back to it a day or so later, and you'll find that there'll be different things in there that don't quite sound right, which sounded good yesterday. So, as I say, what I've done here is just a very short, basic introduction into how to mix down a track. There's a million and one ways of doing it, as I've already said. So, just take these basic principles and apply them within your own time, and take your time with your mix down. Now this is done in its basic form, what we'll do is we'll bounce it over to a complete waveform, and then we'll send it over to do a mastering session. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that your track's coming on. Any problems, give me an email and I usually respond within 24 hours. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Goodbye.